Welcome to this video on evaluation. So this is one looking at secondary high school level, the ESL and EESL programs, so the enriched and regular English second language programs, and how we evaluate. So just a reminder that there are 4 different documents that we look at for 4 different cycles. So we had cycle 1 ESL, cycle 2 ESL, cycle 2 ESL, and cycle 2 ESL. We had the Programme de Formation, which talked about the skills, progression of learning, which talked about the content. And today we're looking at the framework for evaluation of learning, so how we evaluate, and also the échelle de compétences. This is the focus today. Here we go. So the main document that we're working with is the framework for evaluation of learning. And there's just the one document. It looks like this, and you'll notice in high school it says English as a second language, core programs, which is ESL, and enriched programs, which is EESL or EESL. Okay, and it covers cycle 1 and 2 for high school, just the one document. And they publish that, and then of course they publish the échelle de compétences a couple years later. So they have 2 of those, one for cycle 1 and one for cycle 2. And these are great because, as I say, they actually tell you, okay, so we're evaluating C1, C2, and C3, but what does it actually look like or sound like for secondary 2, for example, or for competency 1? What should they look like? What should secondary 3s be writing in competency 3? So these documents we'll cover a little bit later. All right, so let's have a look. This is what the framework for evaluation of learning, the first page, kind of looks like. Okay, it just has a nice table of the 3 different competencies and the weighting. So you can see in secondary 1 to 5, you have your 3 competencies, competency 1, 2, 3, and the weighting is slightly different. So to add up to 100%, the emphasis is on competency 1, which makes sense if you think about it. What they were trying to do is counteract all the people that would graduate from ESL programs in Quebec knowing how to conjugate a verb but never being able to speak in English. So they really, really want us to focus mostly on competency 1, being able to speak in English, especially for kids in the ESL program. That's the real focus. Bring that up to speed so that they can function when heading out to Ontario or the East Coast or United States or anywhere else where we speak English. In secondary 4 and 5 enriched, okay, the competencies are much more evenly weighted. Still a very slight emphasis on C1, but because they're already able to communicate pretty well in English, we're really focusing on all 3 competencies equally. Okay, so here's my notes. So secondary 1 to 5 and secondary in ESL and secondary 1 to 2 in ESL, enriched. C1 is the emphasis, with C2 and C3 following behind. In secondary 3, 4, actually this is a lie, it should be secondary 4 and 5, that's a misprint. Sorry guys. C1 and C2 and C3 are more or less equally weighted. All right, let's have a look at the different competencies. So the different competencies, again, are nicely organized. So C1 interacts orally in English. Again, there's a little note to remind you that it's weighted differently depending on your cycle and program. There are the different evaluation criteria appear on the left here. So the 3 things that we can evaluate are participation in oral interaction. Are they using English at all times? The content of the message. Are they on topic? And articulation of the message. Can we understand what they're saying? So those are the 3 things we're looking for when they are speaking in English and listening to their partners and responding. But notice the little asterisks here. Okay, there's asterisks on strategies and resources. So they want us to teach them, but we can't really grade them on it. We can give them feedback. So the way that we approach that is when they're participating in English, we can say, you know what, if you're having trouble being able to use English at all times, a good strategy is to use your resources. Have a look at the posters around the room for different expressions. Content or articulation of the message. Are you having trouble pronouncing? Practice at home. Find opportunities to practice outside. You know, that kind of thing. So we give them feedback on the way they use their strategies and resources, but not a grade. So just to recap, in C1 we're doing participation in oral interaction, which is things like, are they using English? Are they contributing to the interaction? Are they reacting to each other? We can grade them on the content of their message. Are they on topic? Does their message make sense? Are they making an effort to elaborate their ideas and opinions, not just saying, I agree, but I agree because? Are they building on what others say? So this is what we're aiming for. Articulation of the message. Are they speaking fluently without hesitating? Are they speaking accurately without too many mistakes? Is it easy for them to understand? And are they using idiomatic language? Now that is for enriched, as you notice here, enriched programs and cycle 2. So we're moving them towards using expressions. And again, uses and manages strategies and resources is optional. Competency 2, reinvests understanding of text. Again, notice the little asterisks. So we have evidence of understanding through the response process, which is a complicated way of saying, did they understand the text? And again, we have our little asterisks. So we have evidence of understanding and use of knowledge from texts. So let's review these quickly. Evidence of understanding, really, did they demonstrate understanding of the text? Did they understand the film they watched? Did they understand the book they read? You can use the response process to test that at a kind of superficial level where they engage in the text. If they are making personal connections, so connections between what they watched and listened to and read and their own lives, and if they're able to generalize beyond the text. So can they relate the issues in the text to ones that they see outside the classroom, in their community and in the world? This one is a little tougher for a lot of teachers. So the use of knowledge from texts in a reinvestment task. So the idea behind that is often project-based learning or using that in writing and production. So the students read a bunch of texts or listen, watch movies, all those things. And they really think about some of the ideas from the text, the ideas and information. So they do note-taking, they do comparing, they do some semantic mapping where they graphic organize the information. So they select it and use it and put it together, and then they write something or they produce something. Okay, they also can use text features. So if you are reading newspapers, get them to pay attention to how a newspaper is set up. So when they write their own newspaper article, they use some of the same features and understand why those features are there. If they're producing a print ad to convince someone of something, what are some of the things that print ads have? How do they use color to attract people's attention? How do they use really big font? What are some of the humorous ways that they use to keep people's attention and send their message? Okay, so when you're using knowledge from text, it's some of the ideas from things that you read, some of the information from things you read, but also some of the features to make something new. And you're checking to see that the ideas are coherent, if they make sense. The ideas are well organized. So, if you're writing, using paragraphs really helps a reader, having one idea per paragraph. The information is accurate, so they are using information from the text they read, not just making this stuff up. And of course, they're using their strategies. Okay, so there are really only two things that we can evaluate. This is the most commonly evaluated one because it's easiest. Are they understanding? And are they using what they've read? Are they sort of taking it one step beyond to make their own ideas in that kind of synthesis? Okay, competency 3, writes and produces texts. So again, notice our little asterisks. You can't evaluate the participating in the writing and production processes. You can give feedback. Are you following all the different steps? Maybe your writing would be better if you put out a plan first instead of just starting to write right away. Again, use of strategies and resources and management of strategies and resources, give them feedback to help them improve on the things you can give them a grade on, which are content of the message. So when they're writing and producing texts, is their message pertinent? Is it relevant? Is it on topic? Is it coherent? Does it make sense, or is it kind of going off in all different directions? Is it well organized? Are they developing their ideas and viewpoints, or are they just kind of remaining at a superficial level? So the content is all the ideas. Is it on topic, coherent, well organized? Formulation of the message. This is where we're getting into the grammar. Okay, so in ESL, the core level, it's the accuracy of targeted or familiar language. So this is really the grammar or spelling that's been taught. We cannot take points off for language mistakes in general. You can only take points off or, penalize kids if they have not really acquired the language that we've been working on specifically in class. So if we've been working on capital letters and they give you in a text that's filled with mistakes on capital letters, then you can say, hey, man, that needs to be revised. But if they give you a text and you've been focusing on capital letters and they have problems with punctuation, you can't penalize them for that because that hasn't been the focus of instruction. This is different in enriched. In enriched, you can give them a grade on the accuracy of their language in general. Because they're using a much more personalized response, then they have to really up their game. You can also give them grades for the use of text components, because if we're really focusing again on reinvesting, so using things like title, different font or images, then yes, you can grade them on that. How well did they use some of the text components and features? In ESL, enriched, we're also looking at elements of style. Are they using a formal register when speaking to adults? What kind of vocabulary and expressions are they using? Idiomatic things. Okay, so strategies and resources. So those are the things that we are evaluating them on. And now we're going to turn and look at the échelle de compétences, so the competency scales, which really describe what an A or a B or a C or a D or an E would look like. Now, just to note that the ministry doesn't use A, B, C's, and D's or letters and number grades. Well, they use kind of levels. So this is what they call compétences marquées, assurées, acceptables, peu développées, and très peu développées. So the actual target, whoops, come back. The actual target is a 3, an acceptable competence. So this is when the student is satisfying basically the what we want, the exigencies, or okay. Anything above that, they're really clearly satisfying it, and then they're going beyond what we are asking. Okay, so let's have a quick look at some examples here. So this is for cycle 1, interacts orally in English, so competency 1. Remember that the acceptable competency development is level 3. So what are they doing in cycle 1? So grade 7 and 8, sec 1 and sec 2, to interact orally in English. Their target is that they're participating in discussions, they're working on supporting and elaborating their own ideas, they're verifying their understanding, communicating messages that are easily understood, they're using group and class discussions, they're using some strategies, and they're starting to reflect on their own language use. That's what it looks like. Anything above, they're actively participating even when topics are not familiar, they're using outside references, they're playing with languages, they are totally at ease and using complex sentences, adjusting speed and simplifying languages. So that's what like level 5 would be. And minimal is that they're really only using a basic level, functional language models and literal translations. Acceptable competency belt, this is a competency 2, so reinvesting understanding. So again, competency 2, the target is demonstrating understanding of texts. They're sharing and validating groups. They're retelling stories in their own words, selecting and using information for their own writing. We talked about that. And they're using things like resources and strategies. So read through what acceptable is and then have a look at what advanced is and what minimal is, and you get a really good sense. So the descriptors are good there. Competency 3, last one. Again, acceptable. They're writing and producing a variety of texts, following models when necessary. They're following the model sometimes. They're following the writing and production process. They're incorporating feedback. They're using resources. They're learning to edit and revise their own texts. And they're learning to edit peers' text and providing feedback. Again, take some time to have a look at what advanced competency development looks like and minimal. So that's it. That was the evaluation for secondary level ESL and ESL programs. Thanks for watching.